Right, let's go. So the first thing I think we'll do is the poppies. Now, what I have done is I have drawn some poppies on here, and I thought I'd do a little bit of a different style poppy. So generally when I'm doing this kind of thing, I tend to do the poppies, I tend to draw poppies on, mainly because I know what I'm doing, you know, I know where I'm going, and there's no guesswork in it. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to use pigments with this. Now I'm using the primary pigment, which is like a really, really deep blue, and I'm using the neon pigments, which is like a paler blue, and I'm going to mix the two together. And then what I have also got here is some isopropyl alcohol. Now this works equally as well with acetone, because I have tried it. I thought I'd better try it because I really, you know, I don't know about you, but everybody, you know, delivery's taking so long at the moment. And I really, you know, when you want to try something, it used to be like you could get it the next day. Well, it doesn't always happen like that anymore. So if you've got acetone, you can definitely work with some acetone as well. Let me get all of this, and I'm going to use a little palette. We're going to use the palette just to create the base. Now you can see here we've got the flowers already drawn on. Now I need to just make sure, because I've got glasses on for close vision, which means that when I look at the screen it's not always, I can't see if it's in focus or not, so you let me know. Not that you could actually let me know because I'm not looking at the screen. So we're just going to grab a little bit of the cleanser and a little bit of the pigment, and we're going to place that in here. So we're just going to create like a paint effect. Now bearing in mind that the cleanser or the alcohol will evaporate, but it's okay because you will just be left with pigment, so you can initiate it. And then what you're going to do is place the okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to place the pigment just at the base of the flower. All right, so that's all you're going to do. You're not going to do it anywhere else, and then we're only going to work one petal at a time. So then grab more alcohol and use your brush, and I'm just using the purple brush, and you're just going to bleed out that color. All right, now the whole thing about aquarelle or watercolor is that you need to have an element of patience. So important. And if you don't, you'll find that your artwork or your paint just goes all over the place. Now you need to make sure that you let this dry, and what's so great about this using alcohol is that when you work, it dries really, really quickly. So I'm just going to put some in the bottom here. So I've got a little overhang, so this is all shadow. And we're just going to come up like that. So what I am going to do is use a different, smaller, I'm going to use the orange brush. Just a smaller thing, just so I've got a little bit more control. And I'm just, see how I'm dragging the paint? But I'm allowing the alcohol to dissolve that pigment. Now what will happen is the alcohol will sort of make the pigment stick as well. So you won't worry too much about it sort of coming away. So you can see here you've already got it, but the reason why I'm working opposite is because now I can leave this one to dry and this one to dry. So now this one should be okay to do, but I'm actually going to work at the top here. So what I'm going to do is come in with the lighter shade. Okay, and then we're just going to come in and we're just going to create just where the sunlight would be at the tip here. Okay, and we're just going to come at the bottom here because this flower is sort of away, it's a bit further away from the other one, and so it's more towards the sun. You see how this has gone all dry? We're just going to add a little bit in here and a little bit here, and then we're just going to come back in and whoop, blend it out. Now I'm going to say that when you're using a brush, this is an old brush of mine, don't get too attached to don't use your best brush, because your brush, when you're using alcohol, is going to dry it out, okay? So you've got to be warned that your brush will dry out. So, you know, this is like my alcohol brush and my alcohol brush here. So I'm just going to come in here a little bit more, and we'll just bleed that out. Now we use the word bleed, blooms, blend, whatever you like. Can you see what I'm doing? I'm literally just placing a dot of alcohol on there and just allowing it to blend. So I'm just gonna, okay, we're gonna come in and we're gonna do this section here. So I'm just placing it in, and you see how I'm brushing it out. And then I'm just gonna get some more alcohol, and I'm hoping you should be able to see it happen now. Come closer. You see how we just leave it alone. We're not touching it at all. Now what you can do is you can come in with this smaller brush, and you can actually pull some of that colour up. You know, if you have a little bit of, just so that you've got an element of an outline, but we really don't want it, because we want that really soft, gentle effect. Okay, so now this one, I don't know if you can see how it's got a bit of a fold happening. So this is going to be a bit tricky. So we're going to come in with a gentler, the smaller brush, and we're going to use a quite dark in here and along this edge. The reason why is because that fold has created a bit of a shadow for us. So let's use I'm not using water, I'm using alcohol. And the reason why that is so important is because the alcohol literally dissolves the pigment. So that's all a bit of a shadow. Okay, so you can see that fold is happening there. But what we need to do, because we actually don't want anything, we don't want any paint on there, we're going to actually use white there. But what we do want is we want some paint here, because that's where the shadow is going to go. So I'm going to go in with that lighter blue. This is the neon pigment one. And then I'm going to just grab a little bit of white. Now, don't be tempted to grab your pigments that have a little bit of shimmer in it, because pigments with shimmer actually have silica in it and other bits and bobs. And what happens is that when you start blending and bleeding and whatever, we need to find a different name. What happens is that it dissolves, but you're left with these lumps of, I don't know, glitter or shimmer or all of those other things that we don't want. And we want this powdery effect. We want it to look like watercolour. So you do want to have something that's like a neon pigment, or like our primary pigments. It's completely opaque and very, very non-glittery. Now we're going to come in and we are going to do some little outlines. So that will solve any problems of you wondering what this actually is. See this here? I'm going to do quite a dark line here. Now, if I was feeling fancy, I probably would go get a little bit of black and mix it in with the pigment, but I'm not, because my black is over there. Although I do need to go get the yellow for the center. But we're just going to come in here, and then we'll just bleed this out a little bit. There we go. All right, so I think we're okay. So all I've got to do now is come in with some outlines. Now, one of the things that people tend to have a problem with is when they top coat with this, because and I will cover that. I hope I remember to cover that. Hold on, sorry, fiddling. I'm outlining with the pigment just to give you that element of shadow, so it looks like there's sort of a little bit more two-dimensional. Right, okay, so we've done that. So I'm grabbing my other brush. This is a different brush, same brush, but a different brush from the other one. And what we're going to do is we're going to paint now some outlines. And the reason why I'm using acrylic is because I'm going to have more control. Now, don't think, oh God, you know, she said she was going to do it in pigment. There's no way. There's no way that you can do all of this in pigments. You're just, it's just one, causing such a stress on yourself. It's just no, don't bother. Now what I'm doing is I'm creating like a sagey green. I'm just mixing green and blue together. So I don't want it to be a bright green. This is quite a bright green, and I think it'll just not be right. So I'm mixing a sagey green, and we're going to just do a little stalk. So I'm just going to come down here, all the way down, and you can get a really, really thin line. And we're just going to put the green in the center. Now this is the start, okay? So we're just going to do a nice circle in the center. Well, it's not necessarily a circle. It's more like an oval, because you see how this is tilted over. Well, if I was to do a circle, I'd make it flat again. So what we want to do is create an oval so it looks like it's pointing in one direction. Now we've got a little bud here, so we're going to go and we're going to make this little bud, and again this is the base. All art is a series of layers. So once that's done, I'm going to come in with the blue, and we're going to do a little bit of an outline. Now when you're trying to do any thin lines, it's always good to be a little wetter with your paint. And if you're going to do a wet layer of paint, then what you do need to do is have a paint that's a really high pigment, which of course the Be Creative ones are. That was a shameless plug. Okay, so we're going to come in here, and you can see I'm just, and do you know what? I'm barely touching the surface of the nail. It's really, really light. You know, this is paper. All poppies are paper thin. So it doesn't matter. Oh, I've got a hair. That it's all around the outside. Oh, sorry, it's not totally within the lines. I don't want all the lines to be the same thickness, you know. I'm just going to go all the way around. Very, very light. There we go. There we go, all the way around. I might just come in here a